Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VC I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are here to speak about impact investing, and social responsibility. We're probably going to get a little bit into ESG as well today as it relates to these topics, but this is something we continue to cover here on VC because it has such an important impact, all puns intended, on each and every one of our lives, but it goes so much further than that. This is something that has now entered the thesis of many investors looking at not just investing in these companies for good cause, but also investing in these companies due to the business model and the impact, again, that they're having, as well as we'll hear from each of our investors what their thoughts are and why they're starting to enter these markets more than ever, and also where some of the opportunities are that you need to be aware of if you're looking to make investments or start building in these areas as well. And a big thank you to you for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear, click subscribe, share, or check out the archive as well to hear from more from each and every one of our speakers, and on today's topic around impact, and from all of our speakers of the VC family. If you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor or as an entrepreneur, do reach out to us and we'll find the right spot for you to speak on or to pitch your company, product, or service as well. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VC possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle. Let's go ahead and jump in as we've got a ton of great speakers ready to share their thoughts and insights. And first and foremost, Peter, let's kick off with you. A little intro and a little background. Welcome back.
Hey, Kyle, how are you? And how's everybody doing? Peter Plout. It's always an honor and a privilege to be among such distinguished guests. I work the executive director of the Weimer Family Office. Combined with our partner family office, we're 6 families. We control tens of billions of dollars in liquid capital, and we focus on various investments across the many asset classes. Diversity, inclusion, impact investing, ESG are all ethos of our family office.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Matthew, I'm going to throw it over to you as well. Welcome back. A little intro, a little background.
Thanks, Carl. I'm looking forward to learning a lot from all of the other panel members. I'm Matthew Lemerle, based in San Francisco. I also have and manage a family office, Fifth Era, but my major focus is blockchain co-investors. We are investors in most of the leading blockchain VCs globally, Americas, Europe, and Asia, and through them about 250 blockchain companies, projects, and 20 of the unicorns. For the purposes of today, I'm also chairman of the Universal Protocol Alliance that just launched the first tradable carbon credit token. And with a bit of luck, we'll be able to talk a little bit about using blockchain and crypto to positively impact the planet and the environment sometime on this panel. Thanks a lot, Kyle.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matthew. We didn't get a chance to speak about it yesterday and definitely want to bring it up today. So let's make sure we do. If I forget, throw it in there at some points. But it's a great project for those who haven't had a chance to see. Matthew also pitched it to us here on VC and did a phenomenal pitch. So entrepreneurs, if you're out there pitching investors, want to get a good example of a great pitch, check out Matthew's on the archive as well. And Wendy, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background.
Hey, I'm Wendy Diamond, and I'm an impact investor, social entrepreneur my entire life. Started off very young, creating the animal rescue movement when I learned 12 million animals were euthanized a year. Created the first media company to bring celebrities and pop culture to the animal rescue world. Then I learned 250 million girls were living in poverty, and I created Women's Entrepreneurship Day. We are now celebrating 144 countries, which is recognized by US Congress every year and Governor Cuomo and all over the world. And we bring governments, business leaders, and civil society together to collaborate to find solutions to uplift women in businesses, especially to bring up the number of people investing in women founders and women entrepreneurs. And I'm now an impact investor. I'm in 3 funds focused on disruptive technologies, as well as Bitcoin, which is Block Tower, Crescent Capital, as well as Coin Fund. And I love helping the world, and I only invest in impact. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy, as well. Greg, welcome to the show. First time guest with Maria and I here on VC. A little intro and a little background.
Hi, I'm Greg Kidd. I'm the CEO of Global ID. I also founded Hard Yakka, which is an investment firm that is looked at what I would call democratization of access. So first investment was way back in the day was Twitter, then later on Square. So that was democratization of who could publish. It's had some consequences, and who could take a payment. More lately, we've been democratization of access to financial services. So investments like Ripple, Global ID, looking to give everybody an identity so that they can hold, send, convert, do things with money. So looking always at everything as a democratization of access issue in all of our investment thesis.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Greg, and welcome to the show. Hasler, also welcome to the show. First time guest with us here on VCTV. A little intro and a little background.
Yeah, many thanks. Well, my name is Hasler Iglesias. I'm based in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm 29 years old. I have just started a project, a startup last year with 4 fellow friends. We are all engineers, and we are at this moment developing a community model to offer water purification plants in vulnerable communities. We have started here in Venezuela, but well, the plan is to expand it to Latin America and other regions of the country where the access to safe water is a problem. And also, well, that's the name of our project, Safe Water. And well, we are in love with this project that is improving the life of people that do not have the abilities themselves to access these rights. At the end, water is a right.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. We just had a show moments ago talking about water and the importance of water and how it should be on all of our minds as we look for alternative investments. And filtering was brought up actually by Swati, a new speaker here on VCTV, also the CEO of PropelX. So if you're looking to talk a little bit further on that beyond today's show, Hasler, definitely check out Swati from PropelX. Pardon me. Keith, last but not least, a little intro, a little background. Welcome back. It's been 16 minutes since we've seen each other.
Yeah, Kyle, I don't know how we got through it, but glad we're here. It's fantastic. So great to see some new faces in the show today and to be back here talking about impact investing. I've been an impact and clean tech investor for 20 years in venture capital. Before that, I was an entrepreneur. I last year split off forming my own firm called Upper Stage Ventures, which is applying a VC toolkit into a very early stage of private equity. We are buying companies and then helping them to pivot, to focus on their best international opportunity. In addition to that, I am the chairman of the Foresight Clean Tech Accelerator Center, which is Canada's largest clean tech focused accelerator. And we are doing great impact work there. And I am developing an affiliated fund for that group as well.
Thank you, Keith. And again, thank you, everybody. Welcome. I definitely want to kick off today. We've got a shortened time frame for today's show and a lot of great thoughts and insights to get out there. So kicking things off with the current state of impact investing. 2020, this became a big area of focus for many theses. We saw new funds, we saw new companies. Now, as we enter 2021 and we look at this decade ahead, why is impact investing so important? And also, what is the current state from each of you? Matthew, I want to kick it off with you, if that's okay, and why you see this area, again, so heavy into your thesis.
Well, thanks, Kyle. It's a great panel and a lot of people. I'm going to keep it really short. Every family office, every institutional investor, most governments and most individuals have the same things top of their care list, if you will: health, education, diversity, inequity, and environment. And the only thing that's changing, going back to Greg Kidd's point, is we're beginning to democratize the way in which people can make direct impact against those issues. Historically, there was too much dead weight loss between your dollar and what the results that occurred on the ground. And with blockchain and crypto, we can take away all of the intermediary dead weight loss and make sure every dollar we put in goes directly to where it's intended to go. And I think that's very exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matthew. And Greg, I want to come to you next on that as Matthew teed it up. But to you, why is this so important? Why have you been looking at this for the last 15 years? As you mentioned, Twitter was one of your first investments. Why has this been such an interesting area for you?
Well, For a long time in this world, you needed permission to do anything, permission to innovate, permission to publish, permission to like take a payment, permission to have an identity was issued top down from governments and corporations. And we do see a revolutionary shift in power, both from decentralization and just bottom up capabilities. And so there are now platforms that aren't top down and that are revolutionizing everything from payments, potentially voting, et cetera. Could be how medical records work. There is an ability, we call it the sovereignty stack, where the assumption is not anymore that a government or a corporation has to lead the way. It could be bottom up, and yet it isn't like an anarchy type thing. There is money to be made, there are opportunities, but it is a whole nother set of entrepreneurs that are working bottom up rather than top down. And so I've just been like a Forrest Gump lucky person to be around when some of these things happen, because they just happen to happen in my backyard. But it's been like that for Twitter, for Square. It was kind of just around when Ripple got started. So we're just looking for those next opportunities. Same thing with Filecoin, the concept of distributed database that's persistent for all of mankind on a decentralized basis. And so just need to show up at the right lunches and make sure that there's capital to make sure those entrepreneurs have milk in the fridge, because they're the ones that are bringing this forward. I'm basically, the milk in the fridge kind of guy.
I love the reference very much. And you mentioned distributed, decentralized. Are these two areas a part of that thesis when you look at impact investing and impact companies, that you're looking now more towards those that are focused on distributed systems or decentralization as a whole?
We are, and in particular, it's decentralization that could basically spread like wildfire. So it is the monetization of protocols, it is democratizing, and it fundamentally changes. I don't know how else to say it, but people say, well, what's so great about Bitcoin or blockchain? It's not very efficient, it's not very fast. I'm saying, yeah, it may not be the most efficient, but it is a technology that gives an example where people don't have to ask permission to innovate. And in a world where you have to ask permission, is it really innovation? And so some of the other impact investing we're doing, it may sound kind of counterintuitive, but we're investing in places where there's actually litigation against government organizations, might be the SEC, or corporations like Facebook that are currently blocking the ability. And so sometimes you even have to like litigate to innovate. And so that is not generally considered necessarily a form of social impact investing, but for me, I am. So we get sued a lot, we sue a lot, but whether it's technology or law, sometimes you got to basically rattle the chain to get to this next level and layer of innovation that is not permission based. It's innovation without permission.
Thank you very much, Greg. And I see shaking heads left and right. Wendy, to you, same question, current state, but anything to add on to Greg's point, as I know you also focus in this area.
Yeah, like I love the area, of course. And I just think right now, like with our new president signing the Paris Climate Agreement and rejoining that, I think you see the fact that, we are in an amazing time right now where everyone realizes the importance of impact. And, me personally working all over the world, and especially in Africa, where, I'm very involved with the 2.5 billion that are unbanked and bringing awareness towards these issues, but also, investing in companies that are really making an impact in this world, again, with agriculture and bringing on a producers market and the 6 million farmers in India and working on a program in Uganda, et cetera. So when we think about investments, I really look at the teams and I really look at okay, who's got high integrity and what is their background and what is that they're really, really passionate about? And are they going to do this? And are they ready to do this if it takes 10 years and have to struggle? So I think, looking in the future, I think we, collaborations with governments as well as the United Nations and all their different organizations who are really looking at the bigger picture and how do we make this available for everyone in this world. So, in my, thought on this and investing in, Block Tower Capital and Coin Fund, et cetera, and looking at, just some of the technologies that they're working on, a lot of these are really about the ground up approach and enabling everybody to be uplifted in this world.
Wonderful. And thank you, Wendy. I couldn't agree more. Keith, I saw you shaking your head. Anything to add on to that? And then also, what are you seeing from your current view as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, Wendy's always got smart stuff to say, so I'm almost always nodding my head. So that's great. Just to build on that, I think there's been an increasing trend towards reporting in ESG. And in 2021, I think we're going to see more, not just government, but also corporate adoption of ESG reporting, maybe getting to some sort of a standard. I have talked on this program numerous times about the need for quantification, the need to actually measure the impact that is being made, and not just to set targets or talk about potential impact, but actual impact. And that needs to be tied to commercial adoption, actual deployment of these technologies out into the world. And I think there are ways to measure and report on environmental and social and governance progress that is not overly burdensome to startup companies. It's one thing to ask for a Coca-Cola or a BASF or these very large companies that can have an entire ESG oversight department with numerous people running that, and they have lawyers and scientists and the whole thing to handle that. But for a startup to have to hire somebody internally or externally, it can be a huge burden. But if their actual impact can be tied to the sales of their product, and you can show how each unit that they sell makes a particular impact out there, you can have a very easy, a light touch way to apply that reporting. And if we can adopt some sort of standards around what is expected for that reporting, I think it will benefit everybody, not just the companies, but everyone in the world.
Thank you, Keith. With that, Peter, I want to come to you next. The same question, anything to add on to Keith's point?
Yeah, so I got a lot. First of all, I got to ask Greg, where are you going for lunch? I want to go there. Second, hopefully they don't just serve milk because I'm lactose intolerant. But on a serious note, I got a couple of things to say. First of all, as at a multi-billion-dollar family office, obviously impact investing, diversity, inclusion, as we've always discussed on these calls, Kyle, is obviously extremely important to us. But at the same time, anything that has a philanthropic angle to it is left to the families to do. I'm paid and I'm sitting in my seat to find appropriate risk-adjusted returns, right? So we talk about ESG, we talk about diversity and inclusion, et cetera. Any fund manager that talks about ESG, when they have ESG ratings, et cetera, impact investing, has to return an appropriate return for the risk being taken. Is not philanthropy. So that is very clear. We need to measure what the return is going to be on the risks that we're taking. And if they have a proper impact, if they are diversity in their scheme, obviously more important. So ESG is something that we've talked about a lot. ESG has become more sexy in terms of a topic in recent years. But for me, as a credit analyst and investing over the last 35 years, it's something that's part of every investor's toolkit. E, the environment. You're not going to invest in a company, whether it's a private investment, it's a public company, and it's stock, if there's significant environmental damage that's being caused by those companies, that creates a liability. And if that liability can't be measured, okay, it's an unlimited potential risk. So we need to look at what the actual liability is. So that's the environment. Social awareness. Obviously, you want involved in stuff that has to do with social responsibly investing. And for many years in the United States, we had something called sin bonds, and many pension funds could not invest in tobacco companies or alcohol companies because they were considered sin bonds. So we want to talk about socially responsible investing. You're not going to be investing in a coal mine that destroys a particular neighborhood. So you will obviously, again, you got to look at the risks of what those liabilities are to settle versus what the outcome is. And then corporate governance. You can have the best company in the world. It could be Apple. And if it has lousy corporate governance, that company fails. So ESG investing has always been around. It's always been part of the toolkit of analysts and investors for quite some time. It has grown in prominence, particularly given the Me Too generation, everything that's gone on over the last year that's been terrible, not just in the U.S., but across the U.S. And, one thing I always mention on these forums is I encourage all the people on your show to read Ruth King's book, Mindful of Race, from the Transforming Racism from the Inside Out. It'll really help put you in the shoes of other people that and see how they look at the environment stuff. If you read a book like that, it's a very short read. You could really see how to bridge the gap between race problems in America and across the world, and how to bring about inclusiveness, not just in the work life and investing, but in your life personally as well. So I encourage everybody to take a look at Ruth King's book.
Thank you, Peter. And Hasler, I want to come to you around current state, but more particularly, or maybe around water, and why water is now becoming something of focus around impact investing as a quick response to everyone else's comments as well.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that for years, companies and firms have the sole objective of making profit. And as the society evolves, every corporate organization realized that without a link with the social issues, there is not survival for any business right now. And I agree that it's not just philanthropy or charity. It's also a matter of keeping the business and keeping the investment alive and producing both profit and social impact. And water is, for example, one key topic. We know water is actually, or fresh water is actually a scarce resource. But even in water-rich countries such as Spain, there is a scarcity of access to water, and it's a challenge for technology, for investment, for community organization, for governments, and for firms to be able to deliver safe, accessible, and stable water supply for people, even more those more vulnerable.
Thank you, Hasler. And I want to come to each of you around opportunities. You've each mentioned something of note as an opportunity looking at the year ahead, because as investors, we do invest now, but we generally project for the future, looking ahead in the next, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, the bets that we make today. So as we look at impact and social responsibility investing, what areas do you see as opportunities, whether it be industries or technologies? Greg has already mentioned decentralization, and I want to come back to you, Greg, on that. But before I do, Wendy, I want to come to you real quick. There's a few areas I know that you're very focused on, one of them being pets, but also what you do at with your organization as well is another huge area. So any areas you want to throw out there to the audience they should be focusing over the next 12 to 18 around investing in impact and social responsibility?
Thank you so much, Kyle. So as I look at it, I just funded a amazing competition with Together International. Well, most people don't realize the largest minority in the entire world is disabled people. So, I'm personally funding with my foundation, we're funding a competition for women in disabilities to create their own business to support people with disabilities. So I'm, looking at those types of things, as well as, of course, I'm also invested in about 4 companies in the pet space that will enable pets to live longer and healthier lives. Like one, which is called Waggit, which is the Apple Watch for pets, as well as Base Paws, which is pretty much the 23andMe for pets. using DNA and genome, et cetera. And so I think, when we look at, impact investing, it's about what we really truly understand and care about, right? And so if I'm going to invest, number one in the team, then in the technology of the company, and then how I can bring all my network from around the world to really advance and accelerate the growth of these companies. And that's like the most important, aspect that I'm going to do. And also working really closely now with the Biden administration and with agriculture and all the companies that I'm invested in that space as well. And super excited. And by the way, another thing is we're launching in the Caribbean with all the Caribbean countries, the same thing we're doing with India, and bringing traceability, transparency, and storytelling to that whole supply chain, and bringing different products to harvest that are going to be more beneficial and profitable for those farmers. So a lot of those types of initiatives is what I'm most importantly excited about.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. Keith, I actually want to come to you first on this agriculture. We talked a little bit about this in our previous episode of VCTV, but as you look and focus around supply chains, where are you seeing opportunities maybe in agriculture, to add on to Wendy's point, or other areas that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, great. Thank you. So specifically to supply chain, and going back to your question about trends and current state, there's a huge trend towards locally grown food to avoid the negative impact of transportation, logistics, and the rest of the supply chain. So that's one big area that I think is a really interesting trend, and where there's opportunities for people to get involved within their community that can have a real impact on the environment, but also on the health and well-being of people within their community. And if I could just pick one specific thing within supply chain, in addition to that, it would be cold chain. I think there's enormous weakness within the cold chain. We saw it exposed during the first lockdown last spring, where we had a lot of failures in supply chain of food. And there's been a lot of concern around cold chain, around the delivery of the Pfizer vaccine that requires a very different kind of cold chain handling compared to what is normal within vaccines, or certainly within food. There's an opportunity there for technology and better business practices to make a huge impact. And that's an area of interest for me for investment.
Matthew, I see you shaking your head. Greg, I'm trying to get to you. Don't worry. I see you're still unmuted. I'm coming to you. But Matthew, I see you shaking your head. You have anything to add on to Wendy and Keith, but also
yes.
around carbon?
Yes,
I want to hear a little bit more about that.
I will, and in fact, I'll get Greg into the conversation too. Peter, the place to come for lunch with Greg and me is the Universal Protocol Alliance. He's a member, I'm a member, Sir Bitrex Global, Ledger, Certicate, Uphold, Infinigold, and a bunch of other blockchain companies. We have a token factory. We just, for the first time ever, created a tradable carbon token. It already trades Uphold. It's a democratized access to carbon credits. Carbon credits are expensive. There's a lot of friction. It's hard to buy them. And there's a lot of question marks around their quality. And we've simplified all of that away with substantiated, transparent, easily accessible digital versions. The World United Nations COP26 Global Climate Conference is in Glasgow in Norway. It's in Glasgow. I was speaking to Mark Carney's office yesterday, and Boris Johnson's obviously the host. And they want some great examples of how we do what Keith said, which is create clearer transparency and certification and clarity around how we get impact. And on the other hand, they want to mobilize the world around some big ideas. The big idea is to take our digital carbon credit, add a footprint calculator, and make that button available on every site in the world. And that we need a couple of people, we need a capital partner to work with us on that. But in addition, if any person listening to this has a digital wallet or a digital exchange, we've already digitized the carbon credit. Think of it this way. You digitized money, you could have the iPod. You had the iPod, you could have iTunes. You had iTunes, you could then have streaming music available globally, anytime, anywhere, anyhow. We just digitized the carbon credit, We need some help now going to the next step, which is the button that allows anyone to have a carbon neutral footprint at the push of a button. And Peter, come and join Greg and I for lunch, and we're going to tell you a lot more about that.
Well, I'd love to join. And on top of that, my family office is actually focused on a number of green offices up in Glasgow as we speak, with complete carbon neutrality by 2030, which is ahead of some of the EU directives. Some of the countries here in Europe, in particular, Germany is even further ahead of than that. The final deadline, as you know, is 2050. I think so. There's a large amount that we could do in terms of carbon credits via tokens between now and 2050.
You've got it, Peter. I'm gonna follow up on that one. Greg, sorry, back to
go ahead, Greg. Anything to add? And Matthew, on that point, you actually are all three already connected. There's an email that should be in your inbox in about 30 seconds. And Greg, I'll turn it over to you. Anything else to add to Matthew and Peter's point and areas of opportunity you're looking for in the next 12 to 18? Oh, Greg, you're on mute. Great points. There you go.
So in terms of the world we see right now, it's started 2021. We've been through quite a period, quite a patch. And in the world right now, we feel there's a trust deficit about everything from identity and fake identities to Matthew's point is how are you going to have a carbon credit if you can't trust that it really is a unit that can be trusted regardless of where that carbon credit is created, who holds it. If you're going to have registries for animals, you want, in my mind, you want every animal that needs to be rescued to have an identity as well. And this world we live in now, there is a capability of dealing with a trust deficit with, sounds really boring, with registries of everything, registries of people, registries of things, registries of animals. As long as you can basically do that without being in a George Orwell top-down world, if you can do that bottom up and we can restore trust, whether it's about voting, medical records, carbon credits, posts on social media, we could live in a different world. We could live not in a world where there's a trust deficit, but there's trust and a seat at the table for everyone and everything. And that is a whole insight that's more than a generational change. That's a world we haven't lived in yet, but that we could live in. And I believe that world is possible, more possible now. We've had a great crisis, both politically and in terms of the pandemic, and never let a good crisis go to waste. And so I'm particularly optimistic because when things get bad enough, then you actually have a chance for transformational change.
Absolutely. And I want to thank everyone for their thoughts and insights today. And I want to come to each of you around closing thoughts. Anything else you want to add and provide to the audience around today's topic of impact and social responsibility? And then also where you and your funds or projects that you each are working on right now can be found online to continue the conversation as well. And Greg, Peter, Matthew, again, there's an email in your inbox connecting you guys. So I hope you enjoy that lunch virtually together as well. And Peter, let's kick it off with you. Closing thoughts, where can you and the family be found for those looking to continue the conversation in your efforts around ESG and others?
Well, first of all, again, thanks, Kyle, and the whole VCTV team. It's always a privilege to be here. I would say, in terms of closing thoughts, we have, as leaders in the technology space, the family office space, investors, et cetera, I think have a responsibility to live and work with diversity, inclusiveness, and impact investing in everything we do. And again, work and personal life. I mentioned that I'm not paid to sit and look at philanthropic activities at a family office. That's not my role. It's to obviously find appropriate risk-adjusted returns. But in all of those opportunities that I look at, there needs to be a portion of an impact investment there. Otherwise, really don't have to look at it. So I prefer to look at those that do have that type of impact. So hopefully that we can all, if anything has been taught to us over the year 2020, is to have a lot more empathy and try to live and work with diversity and inclusiveness and impact in our daily lives and work lives. I could be reached at peter.plout@weimerfinancial.com. I have my own website, peterplout.com. follow me on LinkedIn. Happy to get in touch with anybody and give you my insight or how I could be helping as a mentor, etc. So thanks again, Kyle.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Peter. Keith, to you, closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you in Upper State Ventures as well to continue the conversation?
Great, thank you. So you can find me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter at Keith A. Gillard. Upperstage.ventures is a website of my company, or foresightcac.com for the accelerator that I chair. My closing thoughts here are that I'm hopeful that we are going to see 2021 be an inflection point for more impact investing, but also for actually measurable impact in the world. I want to see more dollars go to work here, but in smart ways that we can actually point to success around really measurably making our world a better place.
Wonderful. Thank you. Wendy, to you, where can everyone find you in the organization online?
Certainly. So you can find me on wendydiamond.com. That's where you can find my foundation, the funds that I'm in, and all my investments as well. And my hope is that we all here, and as well as everybody in the world, invest in women. Only 2% of venture dollars are going towards women founders. And so I think it's just so important that we bring awareness towards the importance of minorities as well as women, that this is and certainly have a lot less than 2%, is when you look at this world today, we need to create gender equality, and we need to look at being able to uplift everybody in this world. So to support from the ground up approaches, I'm very much interested in investing in. I'm definitely open to new companies, any women founders I can support or women groups I can support. And of course, I don't discriminate. I love men too. So anything I can do in that space, if anybody's making an impact in the world, I can bring in the United Nations and governments and the whole thing to the party to really increase and accelerate growth to make this world a better place. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. Matthew, to you, where can you be found, and any closing thoughts that you have to add? Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So subliminal advertising, just add .com to either of these, fifthera.com or blockchaincoinvestors.com, and you can find out what we're doing and what we're involved in. The last 60 seconds, this is a very broad talk, and I love LATOKEN, and I participate in VCTV, and I watch it because I learn so much, and Carl always does a great job. But I think this was a very broad topic for one panel. And Carl, I know that you've got a whole bunch of other sessions scheduled on sustainability. I wonder if we could break them up and have one on health, one on diversity and women, one on inequality, one on the planet, because I would have liked to double click. In the case of Wendy, my wife and I backed Renaissance, the Renaissance Network, also Athena Alliance, and we believe in that topic too, 2020 women, and so on and so on. But that could be a whole session all in its own right. So I'm just leaving that out there, Carl. But thank you, everyone. I learned a few things listening to all of you, and I always enjoyed being here.
Absolutely. And thank you, Matthew. You're absolutely right. We're going to put that into the upcoming schedule and adjust for that. Thank you very much. And also, Wendy and Matthew, you've been connected. So Wendy, you can talk with Matthew and Allison about their efforts and collectively with your organization as well. Greg, closing thoughts, where can you be found? And then Hasler, we're going to close it out with you. I know you've got something special to share with us. So Greg and then Hasler.
Just gregkidd@gmail.com. And again, to me, it's sort of a political message, which is democratization, giving everyone a seat at the table, questioning the concentrations of power that we have currently, both from governments as well as non-governmental organizations. And it is about democratization of access. That's it.
Absolutely. And thank you very much. And Hasler, close us out. Where can you be found online? But before you do, give us the quick 60 seconds of what you and your team have put together, a short pitch to us as investors on where we can learn more about the company, but also what you guys are up to as you're focusing on a very key area that was important to today's topic here on VCTV.
Yes, well, we have developed a community model that is a franchise of water purification. This franchise can be installed in community centers such as schools, churches, public kitchens that are a lot here in Venezuela. And with this plant, we can provide children and elders with safe water. At the same time, we offer and train people to work in the plant so they have a job they didn't have before. And the profit that is generated by the service of refilling water bottles goes to social organizations that assists with charity to vulnerable people, and as well helps us to keep growing and scaling up this solution to other communities in Venezuela, but also in Latin America. And it's also a model that's suitable with refugee camps or housing of people that has survived natural disasters. And all we can be found in our website. It's in Spanish, Más Verde, Más Humano. The translation is greener, more human. You can look for it, .org. And my social media in everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, it's Hasler Iglesias, just like my name here, down here. And thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful. And thank you very much as well, Hasler, and to each of you for your thoughts and insights today. It sounds like, Hasler, we've got a few great investors here on VCTV to connect you with afterwards, so stay tuned on that. Great opportunity and great company that you and your team have put together. To you all, thank you again for the thoughts and insights, and for everyone who's tuned in today. Definitely reach out to each of our investors. There's so much more, as Matthew pointed out, for us to continue to talk about. So if you'd like to be on a show like today to continue those areas that he mentioned and others around impact and social responsibility, do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you. And also entrepreneurs, if you would like to join us here on the virtual stage, like Hasler and like Matthew have as well, come and reach out. We'll have you on the virtual stage and find the right set of investors for you to pitch to around industries, technologies, and regions around the world. And also a big thank you to the team at LATOKEN and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. Make sure you check out the archive to hear more from our speakers and all of the VCTV family. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott on all social media, just like all of our investors, as mentioned earlier as well. And make sure you add context when you reach out so we know where you heard us, where to continue the conversation. And last but not least, we'll be back here tomorrow for more VCTV. Everyone have a great day. And again, thank you everybody very much. We'll talk soon.